Okay, I don't want to pretend that the fight for full citizenship for gays and lesbians is over. I don't want to be triumphal about that. LGBT Americans obviously still face institutional discrimination. They face personal bigotry. LGBT youth are still bullied to death. But I am also in the camp that sees this sea change in public attitudes and thinks that we're not terribly far from having marriage equality in all 50 states, an end to workplace discrimination, discrimination in adoption, etc. So I wanted to have you on to talk about some other angles that aren't as frequently discussed as, say, same-sex marriage, which is everywhere. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about is the T in LGBT. It's my impression, and I could be wrong, that the fight to protect the rights of transsexual Americans is lagging behind that of gays and lesbians. Is that impression correct?
Um, well, it is, and when we speak of transgendered folks, I think that it's people are often willing to write off the transgender community in order to further their own goals. So I understand it kind of both ways, where people are saying we want to move forward and politics is incremental. There's also folks out there, of course, who say it's all or nothing. Politics is not incremental. And I certainly understand both points of view.
Now, why do you think public attitudes toward people with different gender identities have not shifted along with the public's attitudes toward sexual preference?
Well, I actually think they've shifted, just not as fast. I
Right.
think that, we see in many states now protections for trans individuals. We see Title IX and various rulings from the National Labor or the EEOC Commission. There's so many boards that rule on this stuff. So we've seen a lot of favorable stuff in that department. What we haven't seen is enough of it or fast enough.
Right. I think that there's some things that are, when it comes to personal knowledge, for example, there's this finding that's really consistent throughout the social science research. If you look at whites are less likely to be racist towards minorities when they know minorities. Native-born are less likely to have hostility towards immigrants when they know immigrants. Straight people are less likely to be homophobic if they have gays and lesbians in their lives. And I wonder if it's just that there's many fewer transgendered people, because I know, I wasn't raised in a little small town somewhere in the Midwest. I'm from New York City, and I didn't know any transgendered people personally until I was living in San Francisco maybe 5 years ago and had a transgendered colleague. Do you think that plays into it?
Well, I think that, as we know from the gay community, when you're out, it's the single most important thing an LGBT person can do is be honest with their friends and family and the people they love. That's how the system works. There's
That's
no
how you change
question
minds.
about it.
I also wonder if there's something to do with the fact that, wherever you are on the Kinsey scale, you can understand lust. Like if you're gay, if you're a gay man, you lust after men. If you're a straight guy, you lust after women, but it's lust. And it's hard for us to know, I would love to be 6'2" and maybe lose the love handles, but it's hard for us to understand what it is to be trapped in the wrong body.
Well, I think that, for people who are trans, it is, it's not something that people wake up one morning and say, oh, by the way, I'm trans and I'm in the wrong body. It's something that I think people go through at so many different stages in their lives. So I think that you're correct. It's such a different experience. I think what brings it together, the commonality of that experience, is the fact that the discrimination has been so similar.
Right.
The same kind of queers everyone's lumped into, or the kind of bashing of people.
Right.
If someone takes it back to someone in the village, they don't care if the person's gay identified or trans identified.
Right.
So we are all in the battle together.
Right, exactly right. Now, tell me what kinds of, let's get past individual bigotry, because that's a constant, I think. What kinds of challenges do transgender people face in terms of legal discrimination, and what kinds of policies would we like to see put in place to help them achieve equal protection?
Sure, and there are, so many, but I think from where we've seen the greatest change is really in administrative kinds of things. For example, recently in the District of Columbia, laws passed regarding birth certificates, and laws, can somebody change the gender of a birth certificate? Because if somebody goes through life identifying as a woman, and then they show up with a passport that says male, and confuses the passport agent.
Right.
So from that perspective, there is that stuff that's happening from a public policy perspective, and that's something that happens, in many cases piecemeal. It doesn't happen automatically across the country. We're also seeing different parenting decisions and divorce decisions around couples that have been married and one of them transitions. Is this a same-sex marriage? Is this, what is this? There's so much new law to be written that I think we really probably can't even imagine a lot of it. But I think as those laws are written and the legal interpretations, more and more we'll be seeing votes for full equality.